Hello everyone, and welcome back to another WARNO Deck Deep Dive as we go into the 9th US Infantry Division this time around. One of the most interesting divisions out of the Norfolk DLC, and one that saw a lot of play, a lot of controversy, and it has a lot of really funky units. But before we jump in there, last chance guys, get yourself into WARNO League Season 3. It's starting next week, and we still have a good couple of slots open, so get yourself in there right now, link down below. And yeah, link to the deck, as always, down below in the comment section as well. Let's jump right in here into the deck, and let me know what you think about the 9th. As we start in the logistics tab with 2 supply vehicles. One, a small one with only 300 supply, but you get quite a lot of cards, so that is all fine. And then a 750, the classic M35, which is a really good supply vehicle. And then 1 card for CVs here. You don't have any 3 availability CVs, a bit of a weakness, but the Humvees are still decent. With 6 hit points, they at least can sometimes survive an artillery hit that a normal 4 hit point CV couldn't, but that's the only slight advantage that it has. So yeah, 3 availability would be better. And then we have more CVs here in the infantry and 2 more in the tank tab. So 6 CVs on the medium part there, not a lot, but at least 6 is somewhat fine, usually should get you through the game. And the infantry tab, a strength of this division for sure, as it gets a lot of good infantry. What it doesn't get with the infantry is any IFVs, or really anything with an ATGM on it either. So you kind of need to use these things here for fire support. Those are AGL or 50 cal Humvees, and they're quite interesting. So as fire support, and the light rifles inside of them are really strong units. A sniper rifle and 2 light machine guns. That's a lot of firepower. So the infantry squads themselves are pretty strong. The light rifles with Dragon get 3 machine guns, so a bit less firepower. Sniper rifles better on the long range, but this is better on the move, which is a bit weird because Dragons are not the unit you want to push in with. If they would switch that out, it would actually be stronger. Give these guys a sniper rifle. These guys 3 submachine guns. But it is what it is. Still, in general, pretty nice. And you get your Humvees here with MGs. Then, 2 different versions of ATGMs. We have the National Guard TOW and the TOW 2A. ITOW would be an option as well, but I went for the National Guard TOW because that's high availability ATGMs, and you need to get ATGMs in spaces all around the map. They don't one-hit a lot of things here. That's an issue with the 16 damage, but at least it gives you a lot of ATGMs around, and without the IFVs, you need cheap ATGMs here, because you have high-power ATGMs, but the numbers are an issue there. TOW 2A is one of them, and we will see more in the tank tab. So having some low-power ATGMs that are cheaper and can be spammed around is quite nice. Military police with the recoilless rifle, nice for a flank as well, to protect there with the RCL. Does a pretty decent job. You could argue for maybe more light rifles if you would want to, or more MGs, but I find this still a pretty helpful unit, so that's why I go with these guys. Plus, you get a military police Humvee as well. If you want to play with more National Guards, that is an option as well. I'm not a big fan of those, so I just go with these guys on their own. And then we have a small MG here, because you have a decent amount of expensive units. So, and instead of the 50 cal, I go with these things. Damage-wise, they're also pretty good. They can't damage vehicles, but you have enough of that around here, and just for blocking infantry with the 4 hit points now, these are pretty strong for 15 points. So yeah, just going with these is quite solid now. Decent range, 4 hit points. They are pretty good at fighting infantry now. And then we have some engineers for the CQC. Engineer flares with only 5 hit points are hard to use, so I just use the normal ones here, and these coming in normal Humvees, just going in there on the front line. Artillery, an interesting tab as well, which is the one where I'm also the least convinced about what to take. I like the M60 AVLM especially since it fires both its shots now again. It has smoke and it can blow up things nicely. But the range obviously is a bit of an issue. But town fights, you're not amazing in those, so having something that can support you there is quite nice. And the cluster is pretty nice against tank plops and so on as well. Though with the availability buff to the guided ammunition howitzer here, I'm not 100% sure if that might not be the better option. We will have to test that, because yeah, the availability buff here was quite nice. Mortars for smoke, pretty important in this deck as well, so that's something you want to take. Tank Tab has some interesting units. Most importantly, more ATGMs. Humvee Tow here with the Tow 2, and more importantly, the Hellfire on the pickup truck. Amazing unit, super strong, high accuracy, high damage, high range, fast flying, good aim time. Like, this thing is pretty bonkers. So yeah, the COCV really, really strong, and that can bully tanks from a long range. This is the unit that makes one of the units that makes a difference in this deck. So you really want to move them carefully. But if you do, you can shred through enemies quite nicely if they don't manage against that. And you come out of cover, hit them, run away. You win duels with ATGM versus ATGMs, as well as yours has the longer range than most, is faster, and has better aim time, so you're always gonna hit first. So on the long range, if you keep it above 2,275 meters, this thing is fantastic. You just don't want to get shot at, because this thing will be blown up immediately, and it's too valuable for that. The M60s, not great. The M60s, the normal ones, are okay. National Guard ones are pretty bad. They are the same stats, but the reservist trait hits them pretty hard. That gives you a lot of debuffs. So having the military police vehicle near to them can help out a bit. But yeah, without that, this will be pushed away quite quickly. This will have low aim time and so on. The debuffs are pretty rough. You can find them on Warriors if you want to read up on them. They're pretty hefty. So yeah, National Guard, TTS, not amazing. Recon Tab is really great though. This one is fantastic. You have one of the best units in the game in my eyes, with the Sniper M82, especially in the combo with this little vehicle, because it's the fastest on-road unit, and this is a forward deploy unit. Means that this is the fastest unit in the game on the front line, because it has forward deployment and the fastest transport. So this can get into better spots than any other recon infantry, and it has more range than any other recon infantry, due to the Barrette having 1,400 meters and being anti-material, especially once the sniper trait gets activated after 10 seconds of standing still. This thing just shreds. So Sniper M82, they are only 2 hit points, so you have to be a bit careful where you put them, but that position, if enemy infantry tries to push in it, it just will get demolished. So these are amazing, especially as they are super stealthy as well at that point, and with the 1,400 meter, the enemy is so far away that they don't spot you that easily. With the recon buffs, it's a bit easier to find them, so they're not as busted anymore, but they're still pretty busted. So these are really strong. Then you have decent fast fire support for the rush as well here. The Tow 2, pretty helpful to get into good spots as well. And then you have amazing cheap recon as well, with the folds that get you exceptional optics thanks to the GSR that they bring, and they only cost you 30 points for GSR recon infantry, and that's what you want out of a GSR unit. You don't want to put them into any harm's way, and you just want to have them around and spot the enemy. And with these guys, this deck basically is the map hack. Yep, that's why I called it that. Like, these here are the reasons for it, because you are super stealthy and see the enemy and can kill off enemy recon, or you can just spot them from afar with the folds for cheap everywhere around. You get 2 cards of these, so this is really strong. And then we have a Kiowa with rockets. It's not amazing, but with exceptional optics, it's pretty good as well there for 55 points. And the rockets can be helpful from time to time as well to kill off a recon unit or so. The Recon Drone could be an option here instead of the Kiowa. I like the Kiowa more. This one here only has very good optics, and the gun is not great, so with 4 hit points, I'd rather take the Kiowa with the better optics on top. AA, not amazing, not terrible. The T-Chap got buffed a bit in price, and yeah, it's an okay weapon. The range is pretty decent. Obviously, can be killed off by artillery quite easily, so you have to be careful and keep transports close. The Avenger, pretty solid at pushing forward, killing off enemy helicopters on the way there, and keeping AA close with quick fire capabilities against planes, especially slow flying planes as well. And then you have your standard Stingers. It's not great, but it's okay. It's decent against helicopters, and that's the main part of this AA tab. As against aircraft, you have a decent aircraft yourself, but it can do decently against cheap aircraft especially as well, which is the key part where maybe an F-15 might be overkill. Then you have some helicopters, not amazing either, but just what you need. You have the Cobras in the rocket and the multi-role function. The multi-role one has so few rockets that the rocket one really is valuable as just an anti-infantry and anti-light unit support. If the enemy tries to infantry push you, this one won't do much for you, so that's where you bring in these guys. And then if the enemy pushes you with IFVs, this is the one you want to bring to kill those IFVs and force the enemy to try to bring some AA around that might be a bit troublesome for them to do. And then air tap is fantastic. Like, this is a really good air tap. You get 2 good fighters, one cheaper, one more expensive. The AA2 is not the most amazing fighter, but it is a really good one. With the Sparrows, the high ECM, and good AM9Ms for the CQC as well. And high speed as well. F-16 with AM9Ms, 6 of them, can win any close duel as well. And it is rather cheap. 30 ECM, quite nice on these guys as well. And then you have this thing as an absolute beast against anything on the ground that is armored. Avengers, 4 of them is nice. The paved floor just can't shred through anything if your Mavericks miss, especially against lighter vehicles. The only issue with this is that it has AM9Ps as air-to-air, so it's not amazing against helicopters, and it's not amazing against other planes, but that's not what it needs to do. Seaplane is helpful as well to get this thing through, and this thing through, which has 8 cluster bombs, so this one also shreds tanks, and has AM9Ms, so this can help out you in your air superiority together with the seat as well. Like, you have 10 planes that all can help out dealing with enemy planes, so if you keep your AA planes around them, the enemy will have a tough time to win air fights effectively against you. And that is a key part of air taps. And as everything has 40 or 30 ECM here as well, so enemy's chances of just one-shotting you are pretty low as well. And you have the combo of seat plus cluster bombs that can run down enemy AA if you know where they are. The enemy has to turn it off against the seat, then you just cluster bomb them, then they have to decide what they do. Often you can just kill them that way. Plus, the AT capabilities here are key, because tanks, especially mid-tier tanks, are one of the biggest scary thing against you in the late game, especially once you start losing your COCV. So having them there is key. So yeah, strengths. We already started talking about one here, basically. Air tap is fantastic. Like, this is a really good air tap. Then, the recon tab, as I said, map hack division. This recon tab is insane in my eyes. Like, it's the best in the game, I would argue. And at least the best on NATO side. And then we have a pretty good infantry tab as well. Plus, like, the HGM situation in this deck is good. Weaknesses: no IFVs, no heavier tanks, and you also struggle a bit without long-range AA. Like, no long-range AA, that's another one here. But you can survive through that. Like, IVs are super important at the moment, don't get me wrong. But this deck gets enough unique strengths that it can go through that. So that's why I think this deck is still pretty good. And in the right matchup, it can absolutely shred. It has a couple of tougher matchups as well, though. So it's not unbeatable, but it is really scary. And we're gonna play it in the next run. So if you don't want to miss that, subscribe down below, and see you there. Bye-bye.